He gets stabbed by a psychopath, but is reincarnated as a goblin into a new world with overpowered abilities. The story starts with a guy getting shanked multiple times by a total sociopath girl, who kills him immediately. The next moment, when he opens his eyes, he finds himself transported to a completely different world, where an ugly old goblin looks at him and names him Gaburo before forcing him to eat an entire insect, after which he ends up sleeping. The next day, he realizes that he has been reincarnated into a new world as a goblin kid and curses his life. But to his absolute surprise, goblins seem to grow much faster than humans, and by day 3 he can already stand up and make some noises. He tries some fancy MMA moves before moving near the exit of the cave while the other goblin kids watch. The next morning, the old man comes up with a huge tray of insects and tells everyone that this is going to be the last time he is going to feed them, as from now on they will have to hunt their own food. Gaburo takes full advantage of this and eats as much as he can so he grows faster, while the others eat whatever they are given. After that, for the very first time, he exits the cave out in the open only to see a beautiful but deadly new world, which looks pretty similar on first glance. But the birds, the animals, and even the insects are completely different from Earth. He turns around to see another goblin walk out of the cave, who introduces himself as Gabichi. They both start talking and Gaburo decides to make him his friend because Gabichi is the largest goblin of all the kids. They soon become good friends and finally start hunting together. The strategy devised by Gaburo made Gabichi run after a horny rabbit, chasing it out in the open while he hides on top of a tree branch and ambushes the animal, killing it with a stick. He gloats about how good his strategy is, only to see Gabichi about to eat the rabbit without sharing. He teaches him a lesson by continuously bitch-slapping him in the face with his stick, knocking him out for a while. Gaburo then succeeds in breaking off the horn of the rabbit, which he realizes is very hard and can be used as a weapon. Finally, Gabichi wakes up once again, and this time Gaburo decides to finally let him eat his fill. The next day, they employ the same strategy in which Gabichi chases the rabbit out in the open, while Gaburo jumps from the tree branch, ambushing the beast, but this time uses the horn to kill it in a single blow, impressing Gabichi. Gaburo immediately breaks off the horn of this rabbit as well, and after that they both sit down to savor the taste of their victory when suddenly a white screen flashes in front of Gaburo's eyes, telling him that he has learnt a new ability. He puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that in his last life, he was an incredibly powerful man who could absorb the abilities and properties of anything he ate, and it feels like he got reincarnated, but his special ability from his last life transferred with him to this life as well. He kills some more rabbits all on his own thanks to his new ability, which gives him extra speed, and shares it, while thinking about all the abilities he could absorb from the beasts in this world. The next day, a female goblin named Mai approaches them and starts talking about how cool Gaburo is to be able to hunt the horny rabbits, as when anyone else try to do that they end up dying by getting stabbed by it. She starts flirting with Gaburo, trying her very best to become his friend, while when Gabichi asks what she thinks about him, she immediately tells him that he is mid at best. Gaburo turns out to be a simp and invites her to join his little gang and go on a hunt together, and Mai obviously agrees, hugging him to the ground. Unfortunately though, it starts raining the next day and they postpone their hunt, which gives Gaburo extra time to explore a bit. He goes to the very back of the cave to see what's present inside the storage area, and is completely surprised to see human females captured and tied inside to produce goblin babies. He simply shuts the door and gets back inside of the cave, unsure about how he feels. He starts making a weapon out of some obsidian that he found, when the old goblin walks up to him, asking why he is so motivated. He then claims that if Gaburo keeps working this rigorously, he might be able to climb the levels very fast. Gaburo is very surprised by this and asks what is he talking about, so the old goblin tells him to tap his forehead twice. Gaburo follows his instructions and finds out that he is already level 86, which is a pretty high level for how young he is. The old bastard then tells him that once he reaches level 100, he will be able to evolve like a Pokemon into a stronger and better version, known as the Hobgoblins. He then leaves, claiming that only a handful of goblins are ever able to reach the level 100. so he should try his best to become a hobgoblin. The next morning, he goes out with Mai and Gabichi to hunt again, where Mai uses her makeshift catapult to swing rocks on the animals from afar, while Gaburo uses the distraction to attack the snakes and stab them in the head, while being covered by Gabichi, who kills the other one with his club. Mai continues to act like a ranged support, while Gaburo acts like a swift attacker, while Gabichi cuts their way off and acts like a tank, killing them with heavy force. After the hunt, they all sit down and start eating, while Mai cries about how up till now she has been eating only fruits which are sad. Before Gaburo could answer, he gets the white screen again, telling him that now he has venom resistance among other new abilities. Gabichi was about to eat the snake head, but Gaburo tells him that only he can eat that as he has venom resistance and chows down. The next couple of days go by as planned, but one day they get attacked in a bat cave, when Gaburo shows his new ability and freezes them in time, before killing all of them with his party's help. The next night, while he was sleeping, some of the other goblins got jealous and tried to kill him in his sleep, but Gaburo senses them coming and beats the crap out of them, while one of them dies because of the poison on his weapon, while Mai tries to choke another one out. The next morning they go ahead and shoot an orc in his eyes, while Gabichi goes on to attack, only to be pushed away, but Mai comes for his defense and shoots a rock, breaking the orc's fingers, followed by Gabichi breaking the monster's leg. After that, Gabichi delivers the final blow and finishes the orc before they all eat it. While eating, he tells them that they should take some of the food back to the cave and they distribute it among the others. The next morning, when he wakes up, he finds himself to be grown and evolved into a hobgoblin. He sits down and looks at Gabichi only to realize even he has evolved, while both Mai and the old goblin thirst over their bodies. Gaburo and Gabichi decide to test their newfound strength outside and conduct a sparring match in which Gabichi tries his best. But Gaburo is able to outsmart and outfight him, knocking him to the ground. He picks Gabichi up and tells him that in terms of raw strength, he has more strength, which makes him happy, when suddenly he senses something. It turns out that a bunch of wild wolves have infiltrated the jungle and are literally killing all the organisms in their path. They even attack a full-grown orc and tear him to shreds while they watch. Gaburo devises a plan, and Mai shoots the leader in the neck with her poisoned arrows. With the leader injured, the pack becomes confused and both Gaburo and Gabichi take advantage of this, utterly destroying each and every monster that they are able to get their hands on, leaving only the leader alive, who also collapses and dies due to the poison. Gaburo decides to take all of the food back to the cave and hands it over to the residents and the weaker goblins, basically becoming their leader, and telling them he will teach them how to hunt and gather their own food. This trick proves to be successful, as all of the goblins end up becoming his followers, basically making him the king of the cave as he waits for the next day and the next adventure. Just when they thought everything was going well, tragedy struck as one morning Gaburo finds most of the goblin women dead on the ground from a poisonous drink. He wakes up the elder goblin, and together they mourn the loss of their fellow mates. After this, some more days pass by and Gaburo starts training all the remaining goblins of his generation so that they can be strong and learn what to eat and what not to eat, and all this while, Gaburo himself got stronger by consuming several different beasts. While he was training, suddenly he notices a group of goblins walking menacingly towards them. So without a hint of fear, he takes out both of the swords from his waist and gets ready for a battle, but the old guy stops him just in time, informing him that the goblins coming are the expedition party sent by him, and they are basically the parents of Gaburo's generation. They all bring back a lot of loot that will be distributed among the members of the tribes, including a bunch of human females who they have bound and gagged to bring alongside them. The old creep is very happy to see new additions, as this means more goblins. Gaburo finds this tradition obscene and disgusting, which results in him walking up to the leader of the hobgoblins, who is also the biggest and the strongest of the bunch. He looks straight at him and asks him to let him have all the new human females. The leader is less than pleased and immediately grabs Gaburo's collar, telling him to shut his mouth, otherwise he will get killed. Gaburo doesn't reply, while the old creep looks uneasy as he knows how strong Gaburo is. Tension begins rising in the tribe as the new generation goblins side with Gaburo and pick up weapons, but they are against veteran goblins who are much older and stronger than them. Thankfully, two goblin women emerge from the group and introduce themselves as Sato and Ansei, who are mages. They walk up and calm everyone down, before claiming that the leader of the group can be decided by simply letting the leader of the older generation and the new generation have a duel. Whoever wins rules over the entire tribe. The big hobgoblin accepts the duel, confident in his ability, and threatens to kill Gaburo, who remains unflinching. The fight ends before it even started, with the hobgoblin on the floor, bloodied and tied up in silk strands from head to toe. Everyone is surprised to see such a young goblin defeat a veteran without even taking a scratch. Gaburo is happy as well, as he got a chance to try out his spider silk ability, which he gained after eating a demonic spider. The elder is shocked and asks how did Gaburo do that, but Gaburo ignores him and turns towards the rest, telling them that he is their new leader, and if anyone has any problems, he can leave the tribe. Sato is impressed by Gaburo, as she had no idea that such a strong and capable young goblin was growing while they were out hunting. Gaburo escorts the human females back into the storeroom, where he takes out their gags and tells them not to worry, as he won't harm them, and neither will anyone else from the tribe. He promises that they are under his protection and will be looked after diligently so that soon they can return back to their villages. One of the red-haired girls speaks up and asks Gaburo how they can repay his favor, but Gaburo tells them that he has his own reasons for saving them, but tells them to teach him everything about humans in this world. He learns that the girls were out on a hunting expedition alongside a bunch of men when they were ambushed by the goblins, who killed every single man and then captured all of the girls to take them back. He tells them to get some rest and leaves for the time being. The next morning he heads over to the storeroom with some breakfast, when he is surprised to see the girls greet him and be all cheerful as he gives them their breakfast, and they eat thankfully. He learns that unlike goblins, humans are much more disciplined and have different occupations. One of the girls is a blacksmith, the twins are cooks, the green-haired girl is an alchemist, while the red-haired girl is a warrior. The next few days, instead of hunting, he conducts joint training sessions of both the veterans and the younger goblins, only to find out that the veterans are pretty weak and try to talk back to him, only to receive a couple of punches in the face, which brings them back in line. The next morning it starts raining heavily, so instead of going out to train, he starts having a heavy sparring match with Goibichi, which surprises everyone as both of them have an incredible amount of strength and power. Late that night, while Gaburo was sleeping, he senses something is wrong. It turns out that the previous leader alongside some other veterans decided to break the rules set by Gaburo and were heading into the chambers of the humans with the intentions to hurt them. Thankfully for the girls, Gaburo ends up coming at the last moment and slashes through one of the veterans before beating up the rest and tying them up with ropes. Even after all this, the previous leader tries to talk back to Gaburo, only to get kicked in the face hard. After that, Gaburo walks up to the girls and apologizes for scaring them, but the red-haired girl starts crying out of relief and hugs Gaburo tightly for safety. Enraged, Gaburo tells Goibichi to take these rule breakers outside and tells Mai to wake everyone up and tell them to come outside. He decides to make an example out of the rule breakers under the cool moonlight. All the tribesmen watch as Gaburo ties the previous leader upside down and proceeds to beat him relentlessly to the point where the veteran loses consciousness because of bleeding. Gaburo simply turns around and tells everyone with a smile that anyone who doesn't follow the rules will see the same fate. By the time morning comes, the previous leader was dead due to his injuries. A couple days pass by and they finally leave for a hunt, but all of their arrows break on impact because of the tough scales of the horse. The horse starts charging at them, but Gaburo immediately uses his spider silk to trap him and together with Goibichi delivers the final killing blow. They all sit down together to feast on the beast, when suddenly Gaburo again gets a bunch of new skills, and one of them turns out to be triple attack, which might come super handy. That night when he was trying to sleep, the red-haired girl ends up coming into his bed for company and sleeps with him. But the next morning, he finds Mai on the other side of his bed as well. They again head outside for a hunt, and slowly he distributes the leadership of different factions to Gabmi, Goibichi, Sato, and Sei. This way, he will be more free to move around and his troops will be more disciplined. One day he wanders inside the forest alone and finds a monster horse near a pond. He decides to use his newly acquired magic abilities and creates a spear before shooting it at the horse. To his surprise, the magic spear is incredibly powerful and decapitates the monster in a single hit. While thinking about it, he ends up heading deeper into the forest when he comes upon the dead body of an armored horse torn to shreds. Suddenly, he remembered the warnings given to him as a child about the presence of a red bear deep in the forest. Suddenly, the monstrous bear appears behind him, but instead of running, he gets ready for a fight. He creates his magic spear and shoots it at the bear, but the monster sacrifices his arm to block the spear and starts using its other arm to slash at Gaburo. He dodges the attacks somehow and tries to finish the fight by decapitating the bear, but its skin turns out to be super hard, forcing him back. Gaburo immediately traps the bear in his spider silk, but the bear immediately breaks free and shoots a huge fireball which destroys the entire area, while Gaburo hides behind a tree and heals his wounds. Just as the bear was about to leave, he shows himself once again and runs towards Bear, who shoots flames at him, but this time Gaburo covers himself with a magic shield and runs through the flames to stab the bear straight in the throat. Just when he thought he won, the bear smashes him away with his paws, while he uses a magic shield on his back just in time, but takes a lot of damage. He gets up once again, knowing that one bad move will kill him, but runs at the bear at full speed and dodges its attacks before jumping up in the sky and delivering an incredible hit on its head. The bear is more pissed than ever, but Gaburo runs towards it and finally delivers the killing blow. The next morning, Gaburo finally wakes up to see the bear dead, and one of its claws stabbed deep inside his belly. He takes the paw out and starts eating it, gaining an incredible amount of skills before getting knocked out once again. The next morning, he wakes up utterly tired and very hungry. He grabs the head of the dead monster and starts chowing down on it, gaining a bunch of new abilities, and also decided to skin the beast for its valuable pelt. When he reaches for the knife, he notices that the knife looks much smaller than before, and that's when he realizes that he has evolved once again into a giant super strong ogre this time. He goes back to his village where everyone thinks that they are under attack by some monster, and starts scrambling to get their weapons ready for a fight. Thankfully, Gobmi is able to recognize that the ogre is none other than Gaburo. She kicks him on the legs as hard as possible, only hurting herself in the process. She starts scolding him for being so inconsiderate and leaving without any information. She then asks about his left arm, which has been chopped off. He explains that he killed the red bear of the northern woods, and everyone is shocked beyond belief, while the village elder thinks about how he was just born a month ago, but he already defeated one of the strongest monsters around and has also become an ogre. He then moves towards the storeroom to check up on the human females, who at first are scared to see this monster, but soon realize that it is Gaburo and start acting normal. The blacksmith takes Gaburo's busted axe and promises to repair it, and also claims that she has created a knife using a spirit stone that he should check out. Gaburo thanks her for her hard work, which ends up making both Gobmi and the redhead jealous. After that, the twins who cook for everyone now ask for some assistance as they don't have enough people to cook food. So Gaburo promises them a bunch of other goblins as their assistants. Following that, he meets up with the alchemist, who shows him a test tube containing a vile green substance which Gaburo immediately recognizes to be poison. He asks what the hell was she intending to do, and she replies that she wanted to put it in their food, but that was before she knew that there are trustworthy goblins like Gaburo, and promises that she has no intentions of poisoning them anymore. The next morning, he tries to do his usual routine sparring, but it is of no use as he has become so overpowered that normal goblins were on the verge of death, even if he so much as touched them. Gaburo apologizes to them and heals few goblins up, while Gabichi seems a bit troubled as he simply stands up and leaves the cave. The following days went pretty peacefully as the inhabitants of the cave hunted, mined, and even trained together, while Gaburo took it easy and learned some basic skills like stitching while sitting beside Sei, who was reading a book. He asks whether she thinks Gabichi will be fine, and she replies that it totally depends on how Gabichi handles the fact that Gaburo has surpassed him in terms of strength by a long shot, and there is no way they could even have a fair sparring session anymore. The next morning, while he was enjoying a slow, peaceful morning, the miner called Gob ran up to Gaburo with a small nymph in her arms who seems to be terribly wounded. Gaburo immediately starts healing her, and after some medicine from the alchemist and a good night's rest, the nymph wakes up the next morning feeling better. She seems relieved and thanks them for helping her even though she is a total stranger. She explains that the gem on top of her forehead is extremely valuable and can be sold for up to 1,000,000 gold coins, and because of that some humans ambushed and attacked her. She then tells Gaburo that because of the damage she sustained, she won't be able to live very long in this world, and asks whether he would help her scaring those humans away. According to her, she belongs to an old magician who has collected a bunch of legendary weapons and other items inside his secret hideout, which the humans are trying to steal. She begs them to help her scare off the humans and promises them all the loot present inside the cave. Gaburo thinks it's a very good deal and accepts her offer before heading out to the caves with a couple of his friends. Gob and the nymph guide him into the caves, which are bright yellow. And while he was admiring the beauty of the area, he hears a couple of people and turns around to see a group of human adventurers who want to loot and destroy the area. The humans think that Gaburo is just a random NPC ogre, and one of the adventurers uses their stealth ability to try and attack him, only to be surprised when he easily intercepts and blocks the attack with extreme ease. Gaburo decides to try and solve this issue peacefully, and shouts that this area belongs to someone else, and they are not welcomed here. And if they try to rob this place or commit murder here, they will have to deal with him first. The humans are shocked to see an ogre speaking so clearly, but instead of running away, they rush forward to attack Gaburo. He is obviously able to dodge all of their attacks with extreme ease, and backs off while noticing that the mages stationed behind seem to have pretty high-tier magic items, while the other members also seem to have pretty decent levels, but their fighting skills are extremely lackluster. While he was thinking about it, one of the mages used their lightning spell on him, which hits him squarely in the face, making the humans think that they have taken care of the monster. But as the smoke disappears, they find out that Gaburo is standing without a scratch on his face, but seems to have gotten royally pissed off. The adventurers can't believe that such a strong spell was useless against this monster, while Gaburo uses earth magic and binds them in place while his teammates attack the adventurers in unison, taking them out. Finally, Gaburo takes his knife out like a British wanker and robs them of all their stuff before letting them go. After that, they head into the deepest parts of the cave where they find the dead body of the magician, while the nymph thanks them for their help, giving them the permission to take everything they want. After that, she disappears, leaving behind the gem on her head, which Gaburo eats to gain some more skills. Soon, they pack everything present inside the chamber and take them back to their cave, but Gaburo decides to cremate the body of the magician instead of leaving it there. To his surprise, after burning, a glove appears on the chair, and as soon as Gaburo puts it on, spikes and wires emerge from it and get stuck inside Gaburo's skin, binding him with the glove as one. Becoming a new hand, he meets up with the rest and shows off his new arm and the things it can do before celebrating their victory with food and booze. The next morning, he assesses the strength of the items with the blacksmith, learning that most of them are legendary grade weapons. He distributes the weapons amongst the members of his clan while keeping a red spear and a bracelet for himself. The next couple of days went by seamlessly as the goblins trained and hunted together, while Gaburo went deep into the forest to try out his new weapons. He hunts down a golden spider and also a very rare and strong deer, which he eats to gain more powers. Later that day, when he was washing himself in a river, he gets surrounded by some lizard men, but he easily dispatches them without any issue while also killing a boar that attacked him. The next morning, Gaburo wakes up with a new ability, which lets him know about any approaching danger beforehand. He suddenly senses a bunch of strangers approaching the cave, so he gets out to meet with them. The strangers turn out to be high elves, who are very proud of their race, and ask Gaburo about his manners as he made the high elves wait. This is the first time that Gaburo saw elves, which fascinates him, but at the same time he knows that they are going to be a massive pain in the ass. The elf leader starts yapping, and basically he tells the goblins that they are going on war against the humans and need some support from the other races, and that's why they are here. The pompous leader tells Gaburo that he should feel blessed even to have elves visit his dirty little cave and offering the lowly goblins a chance at glory as they get to fight alongside the elves. The leader also claims that he will pay them appropriately, and the old village elder realizes that the food that they are offering would be enough to feed all of them for a month. The leader looks at him and tries to finalize the deal, but Gaburo stops him and refuses his offer, claiming that he doesn't give a rat's ass about their war against the humans and calls him a narcissistic fool as he doesn't even know how to ask for help. This enrages the elf, who grabs his sword, but Gaburo releases a growl so terrifying that it freezes them in place as they piss their pants and start drooling from their mouth in fear. The leader drops down to the floor, while Gaburo picks him up by his neck and tells him to ask the archers that he has positioned to lower their weapons. Suddenly, an arrow flies towards him, but Gaburo grabs the arrow between his teeth and crushes it. This terrifies the leader, and he tells all of the elves to put down their bows. Gaburo then takes out his crimson lance and tells them that he is turning down their offer because he is not in a mood to deal with pompous fools like him. He then puts his lance to the ground that creates a bunch of astral projections of the lance surrounding the elves, as all the spear points touch their necks dangerously. He claims that he can kill all of them in an instant if he wants, so it would be better that they keep their attitude in check and never come back. The elves run off immediately back into the forest, but Gaburo believes that this is not the last time that they see the elves. The next morning, he goes into the forest to kill some special slimes and eats all of their cores. This gives him some new special abilities, and he tests it out by slicing his finger open to spill a couple of drops of blood. The blood drop immediately transforms into a small version of himself, and to his surprise, Gaburo is able to see through the mini version's eyes. The next morning, he decides to knit some clothes for the girls in his harem, and also infuses some blood droplets into the fabric, which can act as a transmitter if any of them are in trouble. The next morning, one of his blood droplets spy a horde of elves coming near the cave armed completely with weapons, and Gaburo realizes that his prediction was right, but decides to deal with them today and finish this matter. The elf leader walks up to the cave with his withdrawn sword and starts telling the goblins to come out, but Gaburo takes a deep breath and roars out, scaring every single elf in the area. This paralyzes them with fear as Gaburo walks out of the cave alone. He immediately uses his Spider-Man abilities to completely cover every person in spider silk, which traps them helplessly, while the leader fails to take command of the situation and ends up getting trapped as well. He takes them all back into the cave and asks the leader why the hell did he come back. The elf is still as proud as ever and claims that he will not be disrespected and has come here to get revenge. The two girls behind him tell Gaburo that they tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. Gaburo devises a plan and tells the elves that they should consider their leader already dead. Apart from that, they have a chance to live, but only if they are able to defeat the goblins in a sparring session. The elves who lose the sparring match die. The next day, the mock battle happened, and out of 23 elves, 6 of them lost the battle and were killed. This was all planned by Gaburo though, who intentionally killed the 6 elves because they were all men, while he let all the females live. He addresses the remaining elves and tells them that they need to surrender their weapons now as they are all his prisoners. The elves argue about how this is unfair as they won, and should be given their freedom, but Gaburo tells them that he makes the rules and they are all going to follow it. He then brings the leader out and then smashes his face in, killing him on the spot. The next day, Gabichi kills a huge beast with his axe and ends up becoming level 100 as well, which helps him evolve into a different variant. He comes out the next morning, looking like an overblown tomato filled with steroids. Gaburo seems to be happy as this will strengthen their village, but Gabichi straight up tells Gaburo that he was worried that he will be left behind, and now he thinks he can actually spar with Gaburo like they did in the early days. They both go outside and start a sparring session while the other goblins looked in awe as the two titans clashed. Gaburo and Gabichi both seem to be evenly matched, but even thought Gabichi is stronger in terms of raw strength. Gaburo has technique and experience, which gives him the edge, and he is able to knock Gabichi down to the ground. The next morning, Gob takes him deep into the cave, where he finds out that even Sei has evolved into a different variant of a goblin. She tells him that she feels an incredible amount of mana flowing through her body and wants to go outside to test it out. Gaburo follows her outside, where she uses her flame magic spell and almost nukes the entire forest. Gaburo is impressed by her strength, while she tells him that she still has enough mana left to use the spell 10 more times. He gifts her a new set of robes, and watching Sei evolve puts a new confidence in the other goblins, who start training twice as hard. But everything is not well, as one day when Gaburo was walking back with Gabichi after a hunt, they spot the veteran hobgoblins trying to move away. The hobgoblins claim that they can't live in the village anymore because every single person has already surpassed them and they are of no use to the clan anymore. They tells Gaburo that he can kill them if he wants, but Gaburo tells them that he doesn't mind and it's their own decision. Moreover, he also gives them a parting gift in the form of a mithril knife, which never loses its sharpness, and heads back to the cave. The next day, while traveling through the forest, Gaburo ends up spotting an orc carrying a dead human through the forest. Gaburo immediately dispatches the orc, but it's too late as the human is already dead. He decides not to let it go to waste, and eats the human only to get a new ability called the Beast Tamer. The next morning, he creates a bunch of earring with his blood encased in a gem and hands it out to the girls. He tests it out and they work successfully, meaning that he can talk to them and give them orders from wherever he wants. Later that day, Gob ends up knocking a unicorn out, which is excellent as this gives Gaburo the opportunity to try his beast taming skill out. To his surprise, it works and the unicorn becomes their first pet. The next day, they are also able to tame a giant bear to go on hunts, as well as a giant black wolf, which is given the job to protect the human girls. As it turns out though, the human girls don't need much protection anymore, as the redhead has suddenly started growing extremely strong and is able to kill 3 kobolds at once all alone, even though she struggled with a single slime before. After that, both of them sit down to have some lunch, when suddenly she senses a flaming deer nearby and rushes into action, chasing the beast through the forest before killing it with great finesse. Gaburo suddenly realizes that the redhead has been eating a lot of monster flesh lately, and he thinks this is what the reason of her sudden growth is. The next morning, he is jolted awake by the feeling that a huge horde of kobolds are running towards them. At first, he thinks it's an attack, but soon he realizes that they are trying to run away from something. The goblins arm themselves, ready for a fight, but Gaburo tells them to ignore the kobolds for now and let them in. The kobolds rush past the goblins in fear, while Gaburo realizes that the thing chasing them is a huge skeleton army. Gobmi tries to shoot them, but the arrows are of no use. Gaburo realizes that there seems to be a single source where all of these enemies are coming. While Gabichi and the others engage in combat, Sato manages to kill one of the skeletons with her sheath. And then Gaburo realizes that these monsters can't be killed by weapons, but they are weak to blunt physical attacks. He starts smashing some faces in and tells the others to throw down their weapons and show their martial arts ability and smash these monsters to dirt. They all begin showing their MMA moves while Gaburo tells them to leave the rest to him as he grabs his lance and starts jumping around the area, destroying anything that came in his path. He plows through the skeleton army within seconds and finally reaches the main skeleton who tries to put up a fight. But Gaburo smashes through his body with his fists and finishes it off before eating the skull to gain some more skills. Later, the kobolds bow down to the goblins, claiming that they are the ones who saved their lives, and pledge themselves to the goblins. They beg with Gaburo to let them join their clan as slaves or prisoners, and after thinking for a while, Gaburo accepts, while he now gets worried about the imminent human attack that's going to happen soon. The next day, Gaburo and Gabichi go hunting on their own after a very long time, where they notice a group of human soldiers doing the Naruto run through the forest. Gaburo changes the plan from hunting, and he and Gabichi chase the humans. They position themselves near the humans' hiding place, and Gaburo uses a thread to listen to their conversation. The humans were planning to kidnap the daughter of the elf clan leader, who will be returning home from some elf festival. 2 hours after the sunset, they spot a caravan of elves returning home, and the beautiful daughter of the leader is being carried in a palanquin. As soon as they approach closer, the humans launch a barrage of arrows on the elves, killing most of the guards. Gabichi wants to take action, but Gaburo stops him and lets the elves get butchered. Some assassins kill the remaining guards, and one of them grabs the elf princess, knocking her out with some good old chloroform. This was the chance Gaburo was waiting for, and he jumped ahead to play the hero. He uses his abilities to surround the men in an earthen wall. After that, he picks up the elf princess and gets Gabichi to carry the human assassins back to their village. Once they reach their cave, Gaburo interrogates the humans and learns that they will launch the attack in 20 days. After he is done interrogating them, Gaburo obtains their abilities. Soon after that, the elf princess wakes up and screams as soon as she sees Gaburo in front of her. He notices her wings and remarks that she truly is different from other elves, but the girl wants to know where she is and what happened to her guards. Gaburo tells her to calm down, but she has already started to fantasize about him assaulting her. She calms down soon after that, and Gaburo reveals what happened to her caravan. She calls him a cruel person for not saving her guards when he could, and starts hitting him. He just flicks her away and states that the conflict between humans and elves is not their concern. On top of that, the humans were there to kidnap her because they were tipped by some traitor elf within her people. Gaburo asks the girl to stop crying and do something about the problem within her people instead, and she starts crying more on hearing this. He has pity on her and decides to let her stay in the cave for the night. Meanwhile, the old bastard has caught a whiff of the elf girl's scent, and now he wants to have a go with her. Gaburo clearly tells him to not lay a single hand on the girl. The next day, Gaburo and Gabichi decide to escort the elf princess back to her home. On the way, he asks her about her wings and learns that only high elves like her can have wings, which are hidden inside their body most of the time. She explains that they hide the wings from outsiders, but she was so stunned that she couldn't help it. They keep walking for 3 hours before reaching the elf village, but they are in for a hostile welcome there. Gaburo can sense around 25 elves perched on trees, with arrows made of mithril aimed at them. He believes that enduring about a dozen of those arrows will not be a problem for ogres like them. However, the elf princess stops things from getting violent. She reveals that Gaburo saved her life, so all the elves back down and allow him to enter the village. They reach the house of the elf clan leader, who thanks Gaburo for saving his daughter. He replies that he didn't save his daughter out of kindness, and the chief asks a servant to fetch something from the treasury. Gaburo wonders what kind of reward the old elf will give, because that will show how much he values his daughter's life. Soon, the reward is revealed to be an artifact class ancient bow named Failnot. The princess is stunned that they are giving such a precious item away, but her dad believes that her life was worth more than it. Gaburo is impressed by the elf leader's character, and as a return gift, he gives him information about the movement of the human troops. The elf leader stretches his hand out to enter an alliance and Gaburo accepts it. He receives a lot of precious items made from mithril from the elf leader, along with some magic stones. Not only that, when they are about to leave, the villagers give them some elven liquor and medicines, which immediately wins Gaburo's heart. He tells the elf leader that if he is ever in trouble, he should contact him without hesitation. Once they reach the cave, Gaburo and his friends try the elven liquor, and he finds that it alone is worth enough to keep a good relationship with the elves. The next morning, Gaburo wakes up Mai and finds that she has also evolved into a higher species. Along with her, there are 8 new hobgoblins in the cave today. However, nothing beats Mai, who has got some tempting curves on her body. Along with the blessing of the god of ice, she can not only control vast amounts of water and ice, but also has special bewitching eyes that can make enemies fight against each other. However, there is something about her appearance that makes Gaburo be wary of her. On the other hand, Gob has also evolved into a higher species called Half-Earth, Lord, that gives her keen insight about the structure and weakness of rocks, and the ability to manipulate earth with her fists. Sato has also evolved into Half-Blood Lord, and can manipulate blood to use it as a weapon. Gaburo also notices that all his evolved friends have tattoos similar to him, although they are different in shapes and places, and he wants to learn more about them. Gaburo knows that if the human troops engage in battle with the elves, their leader will definitely call him for backup. To prepare for that, he distributes communication devices to the kobolds and elves. However, the elves are not happy to receive them because decorating ears with any kind of accessory is a kinky taboo among them. Seeing that he has no other choice, Gaburo takes his sweet time in breaking their pride and taboo behind closed curtains. The next day, he begins training kobolds and elves in his style, and after that, he asks him to do actual combat training. Gaburo uses a new ability called Lesser Skeleton Plant and summons a rare rank armored skeleton. Despite having high-grade mithril weapons, the elves fail to win against the armored skeleton, but they are proud that they are growing stronger. Gaburo is also pleased to see the result and decides to stick with this training process to get better results. Soon, Gaburo learns that by controlling his magic power, he can summon different types of zombies and skeleton monsters, but despite his attempts, he cannot eat them. He also finds that all the undead monsters are weak to sunlight and burn away within seconds if exposed to it. Meanwhile, the training of elves and kobolds continues as usual. But since kobolds are the weakest species among their army, Gaburo is worried about their survival. So he visits their cave and takes help from Gob to seal the parts from where skeleton monsters can infiltrate them. Next, Gaburo sends the kobolds on a group hunting exercise and makes them capture some black wolves alive so he can train them. They manage to capture 20 wolves, who become their obedient pets. On the way, they encounter a wild boar monster, which is known for having tough skin. Gob rushes to face it and utterly obliterates it with one punch, splashing blood everywhere. When they return to the cave, Gaburo finds that the axe that got damaged in his fight against the red bear has been repaired with mithril and spirit stones. He is impressed by the work the human smith did on it, and she sits on his lap to take her reward. The next day, Gabichi approaches Gaburo, looking quite nervous and embarrassed. They go out to talk in private, where Gabichi reveals that he has always had a thing for Gob, and ever since she became prettier after her evolution, he can't contain his feelings for her. However, he has no idea how to confess to a girl, so he turned to Gaburo for advice. Gaburo gives him some advice and asks him to confess his feelings to Gob that very night. Gabichi is nervous about it being too early, but Gaburo tells him that the earlier he gets rejected, the sooner he will be able to forget the girl. At night, Gabichi calls Gob to meet him in private and confesses his feelings to her. She is moved to tears on hearing that and gladly accepts to spend the rest of her life with him. The next day, Gaburo and Gabichi spar, and the Red Ogre has become much stronger after he spent the night with his girlfriend and finally became a man. Gaburo and Mai go out hunting. They encounter some new bug-type monsters, and after hunting them, Gaburo earns a bunch of new skills, including one called Exoskeleton. He decides to try it out, and finds that his body suddenly got covered in dark brown scale armor. It is incredibly tough, absorbs impact, and even repairs itself after taking damage. However, it is too fancy for him, and he decides to return back to his normal attire. However, just as he disables the exoskeleton, Gaburo finds that his clothes were used up to form the exoskeleton, and now he is left without anything to cover himself. As he puts on some pants, the next day, it starts raining, so Gaburo decides to focus on crafting new items. Before that, the redhead human approaches him and asks him to spar with her. She has been growing steadily, and Gaburo spars with her till she is tired. After that, he visits the blacksmith shop and finds two elven smiths there too. They have been working with mithril and spirit stones to create a rapid-fire crossbow. Gaburo finds that its performance is satisfactory, so he immediately commissions them to mass-produce it. After that, Gaburo helps out the twin sisters in the kitchen. He teaches them recipes from his homeland, and then heads to the alchemist to work on magic items. The alchemist has obtained a new class called Item Creator, and using it, she has created a weapon using the bones of the armored skeleton. As a reward for creating the weapon, she asks Gaburo to fill her up, but the rest of his harem catches them red-handed and keeps him busy for the rest of the night. The next day, a bunch of elf soldiers arrive at the cave, claiming that they were sent by the elf leader. Gaburo welcomes them in, where he learns that humans have attacked the forest, and the elves are not strong enough to deal with that. That is why they are here to ask for help. They tell Gaburo that the reward will be generous, but he has to completely annihilate the human invaders. Gaburo accepts their condition and hands them a bracelet that he can use to communicate with their chief. After that, he summons everyone and declares that from today, they are a mercenary group named Parabellum, and tells everyone to get ready for war. The next day, they begin their assault with Gaburo at the help riding alongside 73 of his selected and trusted clan members and their familiars. He decided this time particularly because he knew that during the evening, the humans are more weary and lazy, which makes them an easy prey for ambushes. After running inside the jungle for a while, they finally reach a huge magic barrier casted by the human mages to make sure that no monster can enter the area. Gaburo tells everyone to take position as they spread apart, while Gaburo stands in front and takes out his crossbow before landing an insanely powerful shot at the barrier, completely shattering into pieces and creating disarray around the area. Meanwhile, the other goblin uses her magic abilities and creates a huge number of rock walls all around the area, trapping the humans, while Sei and Mai cast a barrage of offensive magic to completely demolish the guards inside the area. Gaburo creates a huge number of skeletons himself and starts using his crossbow as an auto turret to utterly destroy the human soldiers in the area, creating a small victory for themselves. But this is not enough, as the human troops are not just going to roll over in defeat. The soldiers start fighting back with magic, while one of the female knights starts cutting down every single enemy in her path with ease. Gaburo realizes that this woman must be the commander of the entire group, as she seems to be the most skilled. He decides to give her a proper welcome by establishing his dominance as he screams on top of his lungs, which definitely catches her attention. She immediately realizes that Gaburo is the main enemy, and they need to focus all their attacks on him if they want the skeletons to stop attacking them. Their mage creates a way for them by blasting the skeletons in his path away, and proceeds to bless the commander with a magic boost, which helps her run through the minions as she runs straight at Gaburo. He realizes that she is definitely a worthy opponent, as her situational awareness is great, plus she is going straight for the heart. This is all obviously not going to work out, as Gaburo simply touches her with his axe, and she gets blasted away, only to be caught by one of her allies. He seems impressed by her and claims that he will take her alive as she will make a worthy sparring partner. This wounds the commander's ego, however, who tells Gaburo that he will have to pay for this insolence and challenges him to a one-on-one combat, promising to follow whatever he says if he is able to win. Gaburo obviously accepts this as he hops off his high horse and prepares to face off against her. He uses his magic earrings to convey the message to keep the strong fighters alive while they are free to kill and eat any other person. What follows was less fighting and more lopsided ass beating as Gabichi destroys every single soldier who dares to come near him, while Mai uses her new bewitching eyes to take control over the hearts of all the soldiers nearby who start killing each other at her command. Sato takes advantage of this and uses the blood on the ground to create weapons of destruction as she starts shooting the remaining soldiers on the ground. Meanwhile, the commander is still trying to fight Gaburo, not realizing that all is in vain as he simply takes her attack, while she tries to pierce his heart with her sword. The mage supporting her claims that he can't hold out much longer, so she uses her secret technique and a giant dragon erupts and starts pushing against Gaburo. Sei realizes that this magic is extremely strong and dangerous, and it looks like that the commander knows that this is a lost cause, but at least wants to kill Gaburo alongside her. Gaburo, however, realizes this and simply sidesteps her attack, claiming that he won't let either of them die today as he turns his back towards the magic dragon and creates an incredibly strong combination of shield that repel the dragon with all their might, turning it useless as it disappears in thin air. The commander can't believe her eyes, while Gaburo seems to be happy that they didn't lose a single goblin and easily defeated the human army while capturing some valuable people. They return back to their village where the elf elders all arrive with booze and food to celebrate their victory over the humans, as without the goblins, the elves might not have survived. That night, Gaburo goes over to check on the human prisoners and gives the commander knight a very thorough examination throughout the night. The next day, he contacts the elf elder who promised to give him excellent quality booze in exchange for valuable information that Gaburo is able to extract from the human prisoners. He informs the elves that the humans are preparing to pincer their location, and will probably win if the elves are not prepared. The elder gets a bit worried, but Gaburo tells them not to worry as he has a plan to catch the humans off guard once again before they can regroup with the greater army. This time he lays down an ambush inside the forest, where he spots a fully armored battalion of 500 heavy infantry and cavalry alongside a 100 mages. This could have definitely been the demise of the elves, but for a well-prepared mercenary army like Gaburo's, this is all but target practice. He gives the signal, and immediately the goblins start chopping down trees which block the path any further, while some of the goblins tumble down huge rocks to make sure they have nowhere to run away as they get crushed by the rocks, thinning down the numbers from 500 to 300 in an instant. Moreover, Mai uses her long-range squad to lay hellfire on the soldiers, and anyone who tried to run away ends up falling into pitfall traps laid down by them. Even though their numbers were dwindling, the commanding knight manages to regroup all of them and orders to create a wall around their position using all the rocks or dead bodies lying around them. Gaburo realizes that the strategy is pretty good, as this brings the situation to a stalemate as Mai takes fire from the mages while attacking, and the rocks thrown by the goblins can't really do anything against the wall made by the knights. He tells Gabichi to move forward and take command of the citation, but tells him to capture the commanding officer alive as they can gain information for him. Soon the hand-to-hand combat begins as Gabichi's squad descends down to eliminate the remaining knights. Gabichi starts destroying anyone who comes in front of him, scaring Gaburo that the commander will die. Gabichi slashes at the commanding knight, killing Horse and revealing his red hair as the knight simply smiles and tells Gabichi that he is good. The knight immediately engages Gabichi, dodging his blow by sliding beneath him and tries to attack from behind, but the huge ogre is able to defend it in a precise fashion before they start hacking away at each other, knowing that their lives depend on this duel. Gaburo gets even more impressed as humans are not good fighters when caught alone, but this man is able to hold his own against someone as strong as Gabichi, which makes him want to capture him alive that much more. Soon the battle gets over, and Gabichi emerges victorious as he carries the knight's limp body over his shoulders. Gaburo immediately withdraws his troops and reports back to the elves about the battle and how it was a landslide victory yet again. They return back to the cave where they put the knights into the prison as well while they go about their daily tasks. While Gob was digging deeper into the cave, however, she ends up falling upon a special stream which starts filling the entire room with hot water. This scares her and Gabichi, but Gaburo immediately realizes that he can take advantage of this situation and ends up building a special hot springs for them to enjoy. After having a lovely bathing session, they all get out, and by the next day, Gaburo decides to begin training the other members of his clan, including the kobolds and the other prisoners. He decides to create a real battle scenario to sort out good fighters from the bad. While also finding out who is worthy of command, he doesn't take part in these mock battles, but simply observes as a referee, which gives him a deeper insight into his friends, as he realizes that Mai and Sei are both excellent at giving commands and can make worthy generals. Meanwhile, both Sato and Gabichi are numbskulls whose collective IQ is lower than that of a plastic water bottle and are completely lacking any features of a good leader. He also notices that the red-headed knight seems too eager to learn as he kills his enemies, and walks up to Gaburo, asking him for a sparring match. Gaburo is impressed and agrees to the match, but immediately buffs him up with some protective magic, as without it, the knight will die immediately. Gaburo starts powering up and the fight starts with the knight taking the lead as he tries to land some cheeky hits. But Gaburo blocks all of them before hitting him back with a terrific combo, pushing him back. Gaburo stays on the attack as he lands punch after punch before finally finishing the match with a terrifying axe kick, which knocks the knight out cold as he lays on some rocks. Gaburo immediately heals the red-headed guy, who immediately gets hounded by Gabichi for a sparring match as well. The knight fares much better against the red ogre as he almost manages to trade blows without losing. He decides to reward the knight and removes the collar from his neck, which means he is no longer a prisoner. The next day he tells the red-headed girl that from now on, this knight is her teacher, and she needs to follow everything he teaches. While that was happening, he takes the remaining prisoners and dumps them in front of the elves, claiming that these are high-ranking officials but too weak for him to keep. He then asks the elder elf about the medicine that the humans are after, and the elf reveals that it's the same liquid that he gave Gaburo before, which can heal any illness. The elf claims that they have a rule not to give this medicine to the humans, but there is nothing stopping him from giving the medicine to a goblin who saved his daughter. Gaburo immediately drinks the liquid and gets some new abilities like healing blood. He tries it on the prisoner and makes him drink his blood, which immediately heals all of his injuries in an instant. Gaburo realizes that this can be an incredibly strong weapon in his arsenal as he gets ready for the grand battles awaiting him. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for part 7, and make sure to check out this brand new anime about a lonely guy who marries his childhood crush and learns how to become the strongest spy.